The hidden weapon awakens. In the deep silence of space, Earth remained a quiet and unassuming planet. It was a place that had suffered many challenges, yet it had always remained beneath the radar of the mighty Galactic Empire. The Empire, with its countless star systems, countless worlds, and fleets beyond imagination, considered humanity nothing more than a curiosity, a species to be ignored. They were just another insignificant player in the vast cosmos, and the Empire had long assumed that Earth would never be a threat. But beneath the surface, Earth hid a secret, a weapon so ancient, so powerful, that its very existence was known only to a few. For centuries, this weapon had remained dormant, buried in the forgotten depths of Earth's oceans. The last time it had been seen, it had been abandoned. And since then, no one had dared to disturb it. It was humanity's last resort, something they hoped they'd never need. However, the galaxy had different plans. The Empire's dominance had been uncontested for centuries, but as they looked beyond their borders, something strange had begun to happen. Several worlds, once peaceful and isolated, were starting to show signs of resistance. Something was stirring, something new, something powerful. The Galactic Empire's leaders believed that it was just a coincidence, a few uprisings on backwater planets, but they couldn't have been more wrong. On Earth, a quiet team of scientists and engineers had been studying old records, ancient manuscripts from a time before the Empire even existed. As they sifted through these records, they stumbled upon something truly extraordinary, a relic, a ship, not just any ship, but one that had been hidden away for centuries. It was an ancient vessel, left behind by a long-forgotten era of humanity's past. It was a ship that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The vessel, known only by its code name Omen, had once been the pride of a long-lost human empire. It had been designed to be invincible, a weapon of mass destruction, capable of wiping out entire fleets in an instant. But before its power could be fully realized, the humans who had created it vanished, leaving it behind, buried deep beneath the ocean, for reasons no one could understand. As the years passed, the world moved on, and the Omen was forgotten. However, there were whispers, rumors of strange phenomena coming from the deepest parts of Earth's oceans. The world paid no attention to these whispers. The Empire had long since lost interest in Earth, and Earth itself had learned to live in peace, never realizing that they were sitting on the most devastating weapon in the galaxy. That was until today. Dr. Helena Grant, the head of a top-secret project designed to study Earth's ancient artifacts, had been following the strange signals emanating from beneath the ocean for months. At first, they had appeared to be nothing more than static, unusual frequencies from the depths. But as the weeks passed, the signals began to grow stronger. They were no longer random noise. They were something far more deliberate. Grant and her team worked tirelessly to decode the signals, piecing together ancient technology and knowledge. Then, one day, the unthinkable happened. As they connected the final component, a piece of forgotten human history, the dormant ship, the Omen, activated. The old systems hummed to life, lights flickered on, and ancient machinery began to move, awakening from centuries of slumber. A quiet rumble echoed through the ground as the Omen came alive for the first time in generations. Grant watched in stunned disbelief as the ship's systems powered up. The ancient ship, hidden beneath the ocean's surface for so long, now hummed with a terrifying power. The sensors blinked, showing that the ship was operational, its weapon systems fully restored. The human race had just unlocked a power they barely understood. Impossible, Grant whispered, her heart pounding. She had read the ancient records, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of what she was witnessing. The Omen was not just a relic. It was a weapon of unimaginable strength, and it was waiting for orders. The team scrambled to assess the ship's full capabilities. On their screens, the ancient data streams flooded in, revealing detailed schematics of the Omen's weapon systems, its engines, and its combat abilities. It was clear that the ship had been designed for one purpose: to defend Earth against a threat far greater than any the galaxy had ever known. The Empire, confident in its supremacy, had no idea what was coming. They had always seen humanity as weak, their technology primitive compared to the vast war machines of the Empire. But now, Earth had a weapon that could rival anything the Empire had to offer. And it had just woken up. As the ship's systems came online, the crew of the Omen could feel the hum of power, the vibration of ancient engines kicking to life after centuries of dormancy. The ship's artificial intelligence, a complex system built to guide the vessel, began communicating, its voice deep and mechanical. All systems online, awaiting orders. Grant stood frozen, her mind racing. She had just unlocked humanity's greatest weapon, but she also understood the gravity of the situation. The Galactic Empire would not take kindly to the awakening of this ancient force. If they knew what Earth had just unleashed, they would come, and they would come with everything they had. But there was no turning back now. The ship was awake, and the galaxy would soon learn that humanity was not the weak, insignificant species they had once believed. Earth was about to show the universe that it could hold its own. The Omen, the last line of defense, was ready for war. And so, with the flick of a switch, the first steps of humanity's fight for survival began. The Empire would soon learn that Earth's ancient weapon was far more than a relic. It was the key to their destruction. The Empire's coming storm. The Omen, Earth's hidden weapon, was now fully awakened. As it rumbled to life beneath the waves, Dr. Helena Grant and her team stood in stunned silence. For centuries, humanity had been unaware of the true strength buried beneath their feet. But now, with the ship's systems fully operational, they could feel its power. The ancient vessel, a marvel of forgotten human engineering, had risen from the depths, ready to challenge the Galactic Empire itself. As the team scrambled to gather data and assess the ship's full capabilities, an ominous realization began to settle in. They had just unleashed a force that could change the fate of the entire galaxy. But with that power came immense danger. Dr. Grant stared at the console, her fingers trembling as she ran a diagnostic check on the Omen. The ship's weapon systems were operational, and its energy levels were at full capacity. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The fate of Earth, and potentially the entire galaxy, was now tied to the awakening of this ancient warship. "We need to prepare," she said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "If the Galactic Empire learns of this, they'll come. They'll stop at nothing to destroy the Omen before it can be used against them." Her team nodded in agreement. The Empire was not known for its mercy. If they saw Earth as a threat, they would obliterate it without hesitation. The Omen, with its advanced technology and destructive power, was humanity's last hope, but it could also become their greatest enemy if they were not careful. Meanwhile, high above in the Galactic Empire's War Council, the leaders of the Empire were preparing for something far different. They had grown complacent, believing that their vast fleets and technological superiority were unmatched. They had underestimated humanity for centuries. To them, Earth was nothing more than a primitive backwater planet, a place that would pose no real threat. The rebellion on Earth, if they even acknowledged it, was dismissed as a minor nuisance. But in the depths of their war rooms, something was about to change. General Torek, one of the Empire's most respected and feared commanders, stood before a massive star map, staring at the Earth system. The Empire had been monitoring the planet for years, but until now, there had been no sign of real resistance. Humanity had remained insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy. But the general's instincts were sharp. He sensed something was amiss. "We've been monitoring Earth for decades," General Torek muttered to his officers. "There has been no sign of any technological advancement that could threaten us. But we cannot ignore the strange signal we've been receiving from their oceans." The signal had been faint at first, just a whisper in the vastness of space. But lately, it had grown stronger, more defined. It was coming from Earth, from the depths of the oceans. The general's mind raced. Could it be a new weapon? Something humanity had hidden for centuries. "We should investigate immediately," suggested one of his officers. Torek's eyes narrowed as he considered the situation. If Earth had developed a new weapon, it would need to be destroyed. Fast. He had seen firsthand what happened when the Empire underestimated an enemy. The last time that happened, an entire fleet was lost to an uprising on a remote planet. He wasn't about to make the same mistake twice. "Prepare the fleet," Torek ordered. "We will deal with this immediately. If it's a weapon, we will destroy it before it becomes a threat." Little did he know, the weapon he was about to face was not some experimental prototype. It was the Omen, an ancient, unstoppable force that had been waiting in silence for centuries, hidden from the galaxy's most powerful military. The Empire had no idea what was coming their way. As Torek gave the order for his fleet to mobilize, the first signs of the impending conflict began to take shape. The Empire's mighty warships, massive and indestructible, began to move into position, their engines rumbling with the promise of annihilation. The fleet was preparing to strike Earth with everything they had. But on Earth, Dr. Grant and her team had one advantage: the Omen. The ancient ship, with its advanced systems and weapons, was ready. For the first time in centuries, humanity's forgotten power was alive and waiting to be unleashed. "Helm, take us to full speed," Dr. Grant ordered, her voice calm but filled with determination. "Prepare the weapons. We may only get one chance to make a stand." The Omen surged forward, its engines roaring to life as it rose from the depths of the ocean. The water around it churned, but the ship remained undeterred. It was no longer just a relic of the past. It was humanity's last line of defense. In the space above Earth, the Empire's fleet neared its target. They were unaware of the storm that was about to hit them. They believed their overwhelming numbers and firepower would crush whatever remained of Earth's defenses. But they were wrong. In the dark depths of space, the battle for Earth was about to begin. And the Omen, humanity's forgotten weapon, was ready to prove that Earth was not as weak as the Empire believed. The battle begins. The silence of space was shattered as the Galactic Empire's fleet arrived near Earth. Their warships were colossal, designed to strike fear into the hearts of any enemy. They were swift, powerful, and nearly indestructible. To them, the Earth was nothing more than a primitive planet, and they had no reason to believe the tiny blue world could pose a threat to their might. General Torek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Dominance, watching as his fleet moved into position. His officers were at their stations, preparing to launch the assault that would obliterate Earth's defenses once and for all. The general's gaze remained fixed on the planet below. He had heard the rumors, of course, about strange signals emanating from Earth, but he had dismissed them. Now, the time had come to act, and the Empire would crush whatever weaklings dared to defy their rule. "Prepare for orbital bombardment," Torek commanded. "Wipe them off the map." However, as he gave the order, something unexpected happened. In the depths of the ocean, the Omen had fully risen. The mighty ship, once thought to be lost to time, was now alive and ready. Its massive hull broke through the surface of the water with a deafening roar, sending waves crashing into the surrounding coastline. The ship's engines hummed with energy, and its weapon systems powered up, sending pulses of energy surging through its core. "Ready all systems," Dr. Helena Grant instructed, her voice steady despite the overwhelming tension. "The Omen is the only chance we have." The Omen's crew was a mix of military personnel and scientists, all well aware of the odds against them. But they had no choice now. They had to fight. The fate of Earth hung in the balance. As the Omen took position in the sky, its massive guns began to charge. The crew was ready. The battle was about to begin. From the Empire's flagship, the massive fleet launched waves of fighters and bombers toward Earth, their lasers lighting up the darkness of space. Torek's fleet moved with precision, confident that their overwhelming force would crush any resistance. The human warships below would be no match for them. But what the Empire didn't know was that they had just triggered the greatest battle in the galaxy's history. The Omen's first strike came swiftly. A massive energy beam shot from one of its primary weapons, obliterating an Imperial fighter in an instant. The beam traveled through space like a lightning strike, tearing through the Imperial ships with ease. The Empire's forces were stunned. Their fighters, which had once been the pinnacle of galactic warfare, were now nothing more than debris floating in space. "Sir, they've launched their first attack," one of Torek's officers shouted, his voice trembling. "The human ship? It's impossible." The general's face twisted with disbelief. The Earthlings had a weapon like this. He had thought the planet defenseless, but he had been wrong. Very wrong. He quickly gave orders to his fleet, but the damage had already been done. The Omen was moving with a grace and ferocity that no one had expected from a ship that had been dormant for centuries. It was outmatching the Empire's best warships. One by one, the Omen's weapons systems fired again, hitting the Empire's ships with pinpoint precision. The Imperial fleet, usually known for its devastating firepower, was beginning to fall apart. The tables had turned. On the bridge of the Imperial dominance, General Torek clenched his fists. His fleet was being decimated, and he could not believe what he was seeing. A single human ship, one he had thought was nothing more than an ancient relic, had just turned the tide of the battle. "Fall back. Regroup," Torek ordered, his voice filled with frustration and anger. But the Empire's fleet was already in chaos. The Omen's strikes had been devastating, tearing through the Imperial forces with ease. The Empire had not anticipated this kind of fight. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. In the midst of the battle, Dr. Grant stood at the Omen's command center, watching as the ship unleashed its fury. She knew they were far from safe, but she could feel the tide of the battle shifting in humanity's favor. The Omen was no ordinary ship. It was a weapon of incredible power, and it was proving that humanity had the strength to fight back. "Target their flagship," Dr. Grant said, her voice cold and determined. "Let's end this." With a final command, the Omen fired a massive energy beam directly at the Imperial dominance. The shot hit its mark, tearing through the flagship's shields and causing the ship to break apart. General Torek's flagship, once a symbol of the Empire's might, was now reduced to a floating wreck. "Victory is ours," Dr. Grant said softly, though she knew this was only the beginning. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The Omen had proved itself as humanity's most powerful weapon, and the Galactic Empire now understood the cost of underestimating Earth. The tables had turned, but this victory had come at a great price. As the remaining Imperial ships began to retreat, Dr. Grant allowed herself a brief moment of relief. Earth had survived for now, but she knew the Empire would not forget this defeat, and next time they would come prepared. The war had only just begun. The aftermath of destruction. The debris from the Imperial fleet floated in space like a graveyard. Wrecked warships, shattered fighters, and the remains of what had once been an unstoppable force were scattered across the void. In the midst of this destruction, the Omen hovered majestically, its weapons still glowing with the energy of the battle. The Empire had never experienced anything like it. The remnants of their mightiest fleet were floating lifelessly in space, and the humans had won with a single ancient ship. It was a blow to their pride, their power, and their authority across the galaxy. General Torek's flagship, the Imperial dominance, had been destroyed, and with it, much of the Empire's command structure. It was the first real defeat the Empire had ever faced on such a scale, and the galaxy would never be the same. Inside the Omen, the crew was quiet. Their victory had come at a heavy cost. Though the immediate threat had been neutralized, the war was far from over. Dr. Helena Grant, standing on the command deck, looked out through the massive viewport at the wreckage of the Imperial fleet. The Omen's hull thrummed beneath her feet, the energy from the battle still reverberating in the ship's core. "We've done it," Captain Reese said, his voice low. We've taken down their fleet, but we've only scratched the surface." Dr. Grant nodded, her expression unreadable. "Yes, but it's a start. And we've sent a message. Humanity will not be taken lightly." Despite the massive victory, there was no celebration. Every crew member knew the truth. They had won a battle. But the war was still to come. The Empire would regroup. They would come back, and they would come prepared. And next time, they would bring more than just their fleet. They would bring everything they had. The Omen's crew had proven humanity's strength. They had shown the galaxy that Earth was not to be underestimated. But Dr. Grant's mind was already racing ahead, thinking about what would come next. They had one ancient warship, and it had delivered a crushing blow to the Empire. But it wouldn't be enough to end the war. Humanity would need more. "Rebuild. Prepare," Dr. Grant ordered, her voice sharp and commanding. "This victory is just the beginning. We need to be ready for what's coming." Captain Reese gave a firm nod. "Aye, Doctor. We'll begin preparations immediately." The Omen's crew dispersed to their stations, knowing the weight of the responsibility that now lay on their shoulders. They had just seen the might of the Empire, and they had learned one important lesson. The Empire would never forgive this defeat. The Empire, in all its power, was wounded. The loss of an entire fleet and the destruction of their flagship were not easily forgotten. And there was one thing General Turek knew for certain. They would seek revenge. Far from Earth, in the depths of the Empire's command center, General Turek stood before the remnants of his shattered fleet. His hands clenched into fists as he stared at the whole display of the battle. The damage was catastrophic, and the loss of life was staggering. His empire, once unchallenged, had been humiliated by a single ship from a backwater planet. Turek's mind was filled with fury, and his heart burned with a desire for vengeance. He could not allow this defeat to stand. He would rebuild, and this time, Earth would pay. The human fleet would be crushed, and their relic ship would be nothing more than a memory. "Gather the remaining fleet," Turek ordered, his voice cold with determination. "We'll regroup and strike back with everything we have. No more mercy." The Empire would return. This time, they would come with a force humanity could not hope to defeat. But humanity was not so easily broken. The Omen had shown them their power, and now they had a taste of what Earth was capable of. Back on Earth, Dr. Grant stood at the helm of the Omen, looking out at the stars. A new chapter in human history was beginning. The Omen had given Earth a chance to fight back against an empire that had believed itself invincible. But she knew that Earth could not stand alone forever. They would need allies. They would need to rise as a united force, or they would fall separately. The battle had been won, but it was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The war was far from over. Dr. Grant turned to her crew. "We need to contact the other human colonies. We need to unite the forces of Earth if we're to stand a chance against what's coming." Captain Reese looked at her with understanding. "You're right. The Empire is going to come for us again. We need to be ready." Humanity had fought back, and for the first time in galactic history, they had struck fear into the heart of the Empire. But the fight for Earth's survival had only just begun. And as Dr. Grant prepared for the next phase of the war, she knew one thing for certain. They would fight with everything they had. The Omen had awakened, and Earth was no longer defenseless. The Galactic Empire would learn that humanity's fight was far from over. The Empire strikes back. The calm after the storm was short-lived. Earth's fleeting victory over the Empire's most powerful fleet had set the stage for something much darker. The Empire, humiliated and enraged, was no longer the monolith it once appeared to be. With the loss of their greatest warships, the Galactic Empire was in disarray, but they were far from finished. In the dark corners of space, plans were already in motion to rebuild their power. On the bridge of the Omen, Dr. Helena Grant paced nervously. The crew could feel it in the air. The Empire wouldn't let this defeat go unanswered. A sense of unease hung over the ship as they prepared for the inevitable retaliation. The Omen had delivered a crushing blow, but as Dr. Grant knew all too well, the Empire was resilient, and their thirst for revenge was limitless. "We're not out of the woods yet," Dr. Grant said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "We've proven ourselves, but we've also made the Empire angry. They'll come after us again. And next time, they'll be ready." Captain Reese nodded. His face was a mask of determination, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "We need to be ready for them. But how?" Dr. Grant looked out at the stars. "We don't know exactly when or how, but we know that the Empire won't make the same mistake again. We need to stay ahead of them. We need to find a way to keep them on their toes." The Omen sensors flared to life as the crew detected a massive anomaly. It was far out, beyond the usual range, but it was big enough to be something dangerous. They had no way of knowing for sure, but the possibility of an Imperial counterattack was too high to ignore. "Get a message out to Earth," Dr. Grant ordered. "We need reinforcements, and we need them fast. The Empire won't give us a second chance." Captain Reese quickly relayed the order, and the Omen's comm systems hummed as the message was transmitted to Earth's remaining defenses. They needed to unite, to gather whatever strength they had left. The Empire's retaliation was coming. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. Back on Earth, the government was already in turmoil. News of the Omen's victory had spread across the globe like wildfire. Humanity's pride was soaring, but the reality of the Empire's power was not lost on anyone. The people of Earth were still reeling from the aftermath of the battle, unsure of how to proceed, uncertain of the war that loomed ahead. In the United Earth Council's chambers, General Lydia Hale sat in her chair, her hands clenched into fists as she listened to the news. The Empire was angry, and they were coming back with everything they had. Humanity's small victory had stirred a hornet's nest. "They'll be ready for us this time," General Hale said grimly. "We must act fast if we want to stay ahead of them. We can't afford to be caught off guard again." At her side, Admiral Jensen spoke up. "We need to form alliances. Earth alone won't be enough to stand against the full might of the Empire. We need reinforcements." General Hale nodded. "Start reaching out to the other colonies. If we are going to survive this, we need everyone to be on board. The fight for Earth's future is just beginning." Back on the Omen, the atmosphere was tense. The crew had taken their positions, preparing for what was sure to be a long and difficult journey. They knew the Empire was not far behind, and with every passing moment, the weight of the coming battle pressed harder on their shoulders. Dr. Grant's mind raced as she analyzed the new data. A fleet was approaching. A massive fleet. She had never seen anything like it before. The Empire had pulled out all the stops this time. They weren't coming to reclaim their pride. They were coming to crush Earth, to make sure that no one would dare challenge their dominance again. "We have to take the fight to them," Dr. Grant said, her voice resolute. "We can't wait for them to come to us. We need to make a stand before they make their move." Captain Reese's eyes narrowed. "You're right. If we wait, we'll be sitting ducks. But how do we take the fight to them without overextending ourselves?" "We use their own tactics against them," Dr. Grant said. "We know how they think. We know their weaknesses. It's time to turn the tables." The Omen's engines hummed as the ship turned toward the incoming fleet, ready to face the Empire once more. This time, however, they would be prepared. The crew of the Omen wasn't about to let their hard-fought victory be for nothing. They had learned their lesson in battle, and now they had to learn the art of strategy. The Empire was coming, and it was coming with everything it had. But humanity was no longer helpless. They were no longer the weak, untested species the Empire had thought them to be. They had shown the galaxy their strength. They had proven they could fight back. And they would fight again. The Empire strikes back. The calm before the storm was over. The Omen and its crew had barely caught their breath after their stunning victory over the Empire's fleet. But there was no time for celebration. On Earth, preparations were underway, and the tension in the air was thick. The Empire had been humiliated, and now it was preparing to unleash its full wrath. Dr. Helena Grant stood in the command center of the Omen, staring at the war table in front of her. She could feel the weight of the coming battle pressing down on her shoulders. The ship's sensors had detected a massive Imperial fleet heading straight for Earth, far bigger than the one they had just defeated. This time, they wouldn't have the advantage of surprise. The Empire would come prepared, and they would be relentless. "Status report," Dr. Grant ordered. Lieutenant Chaves, her right-hand officer, looked up from his console. "The fleet is moving fast. At least 50 capital ships, along with a battalion of destroyers and fighters. They're closing in on Earth in a matter of hours." Dr. Grant clenched her fists. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and yet humanity's only hope was in the hands of the Omen and its crew. The ship's weapon systems had been upgraded since the last battle, but would it be enough to take on such a massive force? And how long could they hold off the Empire alone? "We don't have much time," Dr. Grant said. "Prepare the ship for battle. All hands to stations." As the crew scrambled to prepare, Dr. Grant's mind raced. The last battle had been a miracle, but miracles didn't happen twice. The Empire was far from beaten, and if humanity didn't act quickly, it would pay the price for underestimating its enemy. On Earth, the United Earth Council was in a state of emergency. General Lydia Hale and Admiral Jensen were already preparing Earth's last line of defense, but the odds were overwhelming. The Empire was relentless, and with each passing minute, their fleet grew closer. "We need more time," General Hale said, staring at the large holographic display of the advancing Imperial fleet. "If we don't delay them, we won't have a chance." Admiral Jensen nodded grimly. "We've already stretched our defenses thin." The Omen's victory was crucial. But it's just one ship against an entire fleet. Earth's forces are doing everything they can, but it won't be enough. The room fell silent, the weight of the situation sinking in. If the Omen couldn't buy them more time, Earth would fall. It wasn't just the planet's future at stake, it was the future of humanity. And if the Empire succeeded in crushing Earth, it would send a message to every other planet in the galaxy. Resist the Empire, and you too will be destroyed. Back on the Omen, Captain Reese gathered his crew in the war room. The mood was tense, and the uncertainty was palpable. Everyone knew what was at stake. They had proven they could defeat the Empire before, but this time, the battle would be much harder. Their survival depended on every member of the crew doing their part. There could be no mistakes. "The Empire is coming," Captain Reese said. "And this time, they're coming with everything they've got. We need to fight smarter, not harder. We need to take out their command ship and their heavy artillery. And we need to do it quickly. We've got no room for error." Lieutenant Chaves raised a hand. "The ship's systems have been upgraded, but we don't have enough firepower to go toe-to-toe with their entire fleet. We'll have to be strategic." Dr. Grant, who had been quietly listening, stepped forward. "We'll need to divide their forces. If we can trick them into thinking we're weaker than we are, we might be able to lure them into a trap. But we'll need to be faster than ever. One wrong move, and Earth is finished." The crew nodded, their faces set in determination. It was clear that this would be their most difficult challenge yet, but they had no choice but to succeed. Failure was not an option. The Omen's engines roared to life as the ship surged forward, heading toward the heart of the Empire's advancing fleet. Every member of the crew was focused, knowing that this battle would be their last chance to save Earth. They had fought bravely before, but now they faced an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. The stakes were higher, the risks greater, and the consequences more severe. Dr. Grant stood at the helm, her hands gripping the console as she issued orders. "All power to shields and weapons. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We need to create chaos in their ranks." Captain Reese watched the Omen's trajectory on his screen, his voice calm but resolute. "We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're taking the fight to the Empire. Let's make sure they know they can't mess with us." As the Omen approached the Imperial fleet, The crew felt the weight of the moment. The next few hours would decide the fate of their world. They couldn't afford to fail. They had to be relentless, clever, and swift. The first wave of enemy fighters swarmed toward them, and the Omen's weapon systems sprang to life. The crew worked in perfect synchronization, the hum of the ship's guns and the roar of the engines filling the air. Each shot was calculated, precise. The Empire was massive, but the Omen was fast and relentless. Dr. Grant watched the screen as enemy ships exploded in a fiery display. They were outnumbered, but they were far from powerless. Humanity had found a weapon, and it wasn't the size of the fleet that mattered. It was the spirit of the crew fighting within the Omen's hull. They would not give up. Not today. The final gambit, the final battle was upon them. The Omen's crew stood together, united by the singular purpose of protecting humanity from annihilation. Every system on the ship was running at full capacity as the massive Imperial fleet loomed ahead, its dark ships filling the starry void like a storm ready to break. The fate of Earth, the future of humanity, hung in the balance. Dr. Helena Grant, standing at the command center, issued orders with precision, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. Her years of experience in both science and warfare had brought her to this moment. Initiate Phase 1, she commanded. Divert all power to shields. Prepare the drones. We need to keep their fighters off us long enough for Phase 2. Behind her, the crew worked in a synchronized frenzy. The ship's systems hummed, its energy channels lighting up in response to Dr. Grant's directives. The crew's nerves were taut, but they were ready. They had trained for this moment. They had to be ready. Captain Reese paced back and forth, glancing at the holo displays that surrounded him. Phase 1 will only buy us time. We'll need to destroy their flagship in Phase 2. We need to disrupt their command. Without that, we're done for. Lieutenant Chavis, standing beside him, added, "We'll have to hit them hard and fast. We can't afford to get bogged down in a prolonged fight. We need to shatter their leadership, then hit their supply lines. If we can take out their biggest ships, the rest will fall apart." Dr. Grant nodded, her face resolute. "It's a gamble, but it's our only chance." The Omen surged forward, its engines roaring to life as the crew worked in perfect harmony. The first wave of Imperial ships charged toward them, but the Omen's drones were already engaged, tearing through the enemy's fighters with deadly accuracy. Explosions filled the void as the smaller ships were destroyed in the blink of an eye. "Phase 1 is successful," Dr. Grant reported. "We're holding our ground." Captain Reese's eyes flicked to the massive Imperial command ship at the center of the fleet. It was a fortress, a monolith of death that controlled the fleet's every movement. He could feel the weight of the decision before him. The Omen had to break through to that ship. If they could take down the command ship, the Empire's entire fleet would be thrown into disarray. "Prepare Phase 2, Reese ordered, his voice steady but firm. "This is it. We hit them hard." As the Omen closed in on the command ship, the Imperial fleet responded. Capital ships fired their heavy artillery, and fighter squadrons filled the air. The Omen's shields flared as the enemy's attacks crashed against them. Every hit sent a shockwave through the ship, but the crew held steady. They had come too far to back down now. "Engage evasive maneuvers," Captain Reese barked. "We can't take many more hits like that." Dr. Grant's fingers flew across the console, rerouting power to critical systems. "Shields are holding, but we're running low on energy. We need to finish this now." With a roar, the Omen closed the gap, and the ship fired its main guns. The blasts tore through the void, striking the Imperial command ship. A massive explosion shook the galaxy as the first barrage hit home, leaving a trail of fire in the darkness. The command ship shuddered, but it didn't fall. Not yet. Releasing the EMP pulse, Dr. Grant called out. The Omen unleashed a powerful pulse, disrupting the command ship's systems and blinding it temporarily. Captain Reese seized the opportunity. Now, full power to the cannons. Fire. The Omen unleashed a second barrage, This time, the strikes hit their mark. The Imperial flagship's shields cracked, and the ship's engines sputtered. Fire spread across its hull as the crew watched in awe. The Empire's mightiest vessel was on the verge of collapse. Direct hit to the command center. Lieutenant Chaves reported. They're disoriented. Their fleet is in chaos. The Omen didn't let up. The crew continued to fire, their attacks precise and unrelenting. The Empire's fleet was in disarray as their command ship faltered. One by one, the larger Imperial ships fell, their systems failing as the Omen pressed the attack. But the battle wasn't over. As the last of the Empire's fleet began to crumble, the survivors began to retreat, calling for reinforcements. A new wave of ships, bigger and more advanced, began to emerge from the edge of the galaxy. The battle for Earth was far from over, and a new enemy was rising. "We've won this round," Dr. Grant said, her voice filled with both triumph and worry. "But we're not finished yet. We've exposed the Empire's weakness, and now they'll send everything they have." Captain Reese exhaled slowly, his face a mask of determination. "Then we'll be ready. They won't stop us. Not now." The crew of the Omen stood together, their eyes focused on the fleet's last remnants. Knowing that the war had only just begun, the Empire had been humiliated, but it would come back with a vengeance. Humanity had proved itself a force to be reckoned with, but their greatest challenge was yet to come.